What's up, fellas? Back again. Well, we've got a little bit different video for you today. And hey, first of all, let me know how you like the variety on the channel, right? Throwback Thursdays, tournament videos, good old-fashioned challenges. Let me know what you think. But today, hey, we're not talking how to catch a fish. We're not talking fishing technique, but I discovered something. I discovered something very, very important in my boat the other day, all about fishing lures. And this thing that I'm going to talk about is very important for you to know if you want to keep catching fish. Trust me on that one. But since we're talking fishing lures, I want to talk MTB. That's right. That is awesome. Is that not awesome? This thing is full of awesome lures. This thing right here comes each month packed full of all kind of cool stuff. Yes, that's right. Worms, sight fishing toys, swim jigs, spinners, Japanese rattle baits that are expensive, hooks, jerk baits. It's crazy. So here's what the guys have done at MTB. They have given me a link. MTB has given me a link. That's right. $10 off your first box. So do me a favor, guys. When you're done watching the video, click on the link. Check it out. Save some money. Get the box coming to your house every single month. Now, let's get to the important video right now. Check this out. All right, guys. What am I holding here? I'm holding a bunch of lures, right? A whole bunch of them. Well, here is what it is. It's not only a bunch of lures. They're kind of old, right? Kind of beat up looking. But I've had them in my box for a long time. I've had some of these crankbaits for probably 10 years. Just like a lot of fishermen, we keep a lot of our tackle, right? We keep our tackle, you spend a lot of money investing in good tackle, and you keep it in your boxes. Well, I'm gonna show you what's wrong with all of these. There's a problem with all these. And all these baits right here are all good, and all the ones in my box are good. I'm gonna show you what happened to all this. Probably a couple $100 worth of baits. All right, so tackle is an investment, right? I mean, I have 50 boxes of tackle similar to this here. I have boxes full of crankbaits, boxes full of jerk baits, boxes full of topwater lures, everything. I've been fishing a long time, so I've collected lures. I bought lures 10 years ago that I still keep in good shape, replace the hooks. Well, I was going through my tackle this year, just recently actually, and I noticed something. And I actually noticed it as well on tour last year. I've noticed a few times. And what did I notice? This is real important, guys. So listen, do not jump off this video. This what I'm about to tell you right now is one of those real important things that you need to check. Now, here is the problem with all these baits right here, okay? These are all good baits, but they've swollen up. They've swollen up, that's right. They have swollen up, they've expanded. I don't know if it's because I live in South Florida and it gets hot and the temperature changes or whatever, but over time, keeping these baits in these boxes, some of these are starting to swell up. Now here's when I noticed it. I was actually doing a show last year and throwing a jerk bait, and I noticed the jerk bait wouldn't run right. It kept wanting to float. It was a suspending jerk bait. It was actually one of these Lucky Craft baits, and it kept wanting to float up real fast. And I'm like, that's weird. It's supposed to be a suspending jerk bait. So I started looking at it, and I noticed that the body itself is real expanded. It's actually expanded somehow. I don't know what it does, but it basically creates gas inside these baits, and they swell up. Not all of them, just some of them. And I don't know really why. But here's why it's important. The baits that are swollen up, they don't run true. They don't run right. They don't run the way that they were designed to run, and they're not gonna catch fish like one that is perfect out of the pack. Now again, it's not red alert on a certain brand or anything like that. It just happens to some of your baits. And so I wanna show you what to look for. I wanna show you some of the signs that will tell you that your baits are starting to do that, because if you have some of those in your tackle box, you might not catch that many fish on them. And so it's a real important thing to pay attention to. Jerk baits are doing it bad, and a lot of my crankbaits are doing it. These square bills are doing it. And again, I'll show you some of the signs to look for. So let's first talk about square bill crankbaits. I have a whole box here of different brands. Everything from Live Target to Lucky Craft to 6th Sense, everything in the world. And here's one that I had. It's actually a Strike King. And again, this isn't brand specific. It happens to all of them. This is a Strike King right here. And when you look at it and you grab this bait, it looks normal, right? It looks like a perfectly good bait. I mean, most people would just tie it on and go fishing. Well, what's happened is this bait is a lot wider right here. It's actually swollen up. There's gas inside that actually creates more air
So the bait's gonna float different, it's gonna wiggle different, it's gonna do everything different. And here's how you can tell. First of all, you can kind of tell by looking at it. But also, you'll start to see on all these baits, and I picked out, I'll show you all these, you can start to see the seam stretching apart here. They get like stretch marks, basically, on the bottom of the bait. So that bait right there has stretch marks on it, okay? It's hard to see, but when you look at it compared to a bait that doesn't have that, that one's got teeth marks on it, but there's no stretch marks on that. And that's a different brand, but still, you know, when they paint these baits, the paint is perfect. So if you start seeing some big bulges and some big stretch marks here where that paint is, that's telling you that your bait is expanding. When you look at it on the top of it, it doesn't look all that bad. But this bait here is not designed properly because it's swollen up like this. So I'm gonna get rid of the bait. I'm gonna throw it away. I'm not gonna give it to anybody. You can give it to maybe one of your guys you fish against because they might not catch anything on it. But nevertheless, it's not a bait that's gonna work well. So I'm gonna discard that bait. Another bait here, let's go through a couple more. Here's one that's really got the stress marks on it. This is a Lucky Craft bait right here. And look at this stretch mark right here across the back of it. Look right there. That tells you that that bait is expanding and it's pulling that paint apart. And again, the bottom looks fine. If you looked at the bottom, you'd never know it. But the back of it, because it's separated right there, is expanding. Now, there's some people that might say, well, hey, this bait might float higher in the water. That's very well true. This bait might actually maybe catch them better than one out of the pack. I don't know, but it's different, and that's what you need to realize. So if you have baits that are doing this, either discard them or keep them and put a mark on them in a certain way that you know that this is kind of a swollen up bait. It's different. It's going to act different in the water than a out of the package bait. And that's how I can tell by on the back there. Now, let's look through a couple more here. Here's one right here. Again, you can kind of tell right here, these marks are starting to stretch apart, and that's not normal. And what you'll also notice on some of these baits is one side actually might be swollen up a little bit more than the other. You know, like you take this jerk bait, for example, and this is when I really noticed it, because jerk baits are made to suspend, right? But when you swell these baits up, it adds more air to the chamber of the bait, thus going to make it not suspend, it's going to float higher. So if you want a floating jerk bait, I guess it might be good. But again, it's not acting the way it was intended or designed to run. Now this is a Lucky Craft jerk bait here. Pretty normal looking. You can kind of tell by the back. Now look at this one. This one's really swollen up. Look at the difference in that bait right there. This one's really swollen up. Look at the size difference. I don't know if you can tell or not, but that size difference is quite substantial. And again, this bait right here, when you just first look at it, it kind of looks normal, to be honest with you. If it was just laying in my tackle box, you would just grab it and start fishing with it. But it's not gonna suspend correctly. It's gonna float, it's gonna act different in the water. Again, it's got little bumps and bubbles along the side. If you kind of rub your hand across it, you'll feel it all swollen up. And it's just not right. So again, these are important things to know, because as you collect tackle and as you fish and have tackle boxes laying around, these are things to look for. It's something that I just started noticing last year. And again, it's not necessarily brand specific, but I've noticed it starting to happen to a handful of my baits. So I've gone through, like all these right here, I've gone through all these, and these are ones that I'm not gonna fish with, or I'm gonna mark as different, because they are really, really swollen up. I mean, completely different action and everything. So those are things to look for. And here I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna tie a couple on and show you how they act different, okay? We'll look at the crankbaits, we'll tie one on that's good, and we'll look at one that's bad. We'll tie a good jerkbait on, and we'll tie on a bad one. You know, here's a perfect example here. Here's a Lucky Craft. Look at this. Same exact style Lucky Craft, different color. This one's good, and this one is bad. Look at this, look at the difference in the width. Very, very big. This is the swollen one. This is the one that's no good, and this is one that's perfect. Different color, but it's supposed to be the same size. And if you can tell, this one's much fatter. It's got the seam across the back where it stretched that paint out. So this crankbait is not in good shape compared to what it's supposed to be. So again, I'm gonna put these in the water, show you a little bit of difference on them, stuff to look for. So let's tie a couple on. So here we have one jerkbait that's in pretty good shape, one jerkbait that is really swollen up. So first, let me show you what a suspending jerkbait is, for the most part, supposed to do. If you look at it here in the water, okay, it's underwater. It's just sitting there. It's just sitting there. See it? Just sitting there. This is one that is running pretty good. It's not coming up. It's literally just sitting in the water right now. Here's one. Again, if you grabbed it out of your tackle box, not really thinking about it, you would probably think it's a perfectly good jerkbait. This one here floats. Watch it come back up. See it? See it right there? It won't stay down. It's wanting to rise up. So it's not a suspending at this point. Now that is a slow rise. And again, there may be an application for this. So maybe you don't throw them away, but you need to mark them. That's my point, is you need to know that there is a difference, because this bait is going to slowly rise to the surface. It's not a suspending jerkbait anymore. So the other thing is, if they really get swollen up, the rattles inside, the weight transfer casting systems, etc., all those things get out of whack, and they don't rattle, they don't cast as good. It's just a weird fishing bait. So that's one thing. Now let's tie on a couple crankbaits and I'll show you the difference on those. All right, so here's one that is completely swollen up, and here's one that is basically brand new out of the pack. Okay, so there's a big difference there when you look at them. It's hard to tell probably through the camera, but there is a difference. So let's see what they look like in the water. So basically, let's start with the swollen up one. Let's just see how it runs through the water. It's not even running right. Look at it, it's running way off to the side. It's even running way off to the side. Now I could probably adjust that to some degree with a pair of pliers, but it's running way off to the side. And most likely it's running way off to the side because when they swell up, they don't necessarily swell up completely even. Like one side might be slightly more swollen. Now that one is not gonna run good, okay? It's also gonna float really, really fast. That can be good, but running bad, running sideways is not good. Now let's take one that runs true and see what it does in the water. Oh yeah, see how it dives actually down and it floats up a lot slower, kind of like the way it's designed. You can see how this bait runs straight. You can see it through the water. It's running straight and it's diving down. That's good. Take the bait that's swollen up, messed up. It's running way off to the side. Look at it going way out there. Now watch how quick it floats up. The floating up thing's kind of cool. Running off to the side is not. So here's the deal. I don't know what to tell you to prevent this. I really don't. But I do say that it's got to be extreme temperatures, whether it's be down here in Florida and then taking off and going, you know, on a tournament in January somewhere up the road and it's cold. I don't know. So take care of your tackle. Start paying attention to the lures in your tackle box to see if you're noticing any of this swelling going on, because if you have baits that are doing this, you need to mark them or get rid of them. So that was my tip of the day, guys. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for watching, and we will see you later. Bam!